Hey everyone, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated. I started my Apple refurbishing business 17 years ago, and I've always wanted to do a video on business models, and specifically why the refurbishing model is better than the retail repair shop model. If you're thinking about starting a repair business, you really need to watch this video first. It could absolutely change everything for you. So when people decide to start a repair business, or any business, they usually don't put much thought into picking a business model, and the knee-jerk reaction in repair is to start a repair shop. But choosing the right business model is critical because there are a lot of differences that really do matter. It's just that in the very beginning, you're dumb, and you have the least amount of information that you'll ever have, so you're more likely to fall for that knee-jerk reaction. It's funny, I tell people what I do. I buy broken stuff, fix it, and sell it, which to me seems like the most common sense, obvious business model in the world. Yet people look at me like I invented fire and they say, wow, that's amazing. I would never have thought of that. Before we get further, I think we should define the most essential difference between the two business models, because everything else stems from that difference. You do repair in both models, but as a refurbisher, you buy or acquire the material that you deal with. So you yourself own it, and then you repair it or clean it up and sell it. Whereas when you have a repair shop, you repair other people's devices for a fee. This is a massively critical difference with huge implications. There are so many benefits to owning what you repair. You can buy a mountain of devices and do whatever you want with them. You can repair and sell them at your own pace. You can resell them as is. You can use them for parts. You can put them on the shelf for 5 years, whatever. You can break them all as a learning experience. It doesn't matter. Because you own them, you can do what you want and you can do what's best for you and on your own timeline. Whereas if you have a repair shop, there's always a ticking clock. You've made an agreement with a customer and you're doing what you have to do to get the item repaired now. Your calendar is booked up with obligations, and that's a lot of stress and pressure that ties you down. As a refurbisher, when you buy from schools or corporations, when you buy from recyclers, you just tend to buy hundreds of the same thing, the same model, the same brand, etc. You buy specifically what you want to buy. This allows you to specialize and get very good at those particular devices. For example, I specialize in Apple laptops. But with a repair shop in a specific location, you can try to specialize, but it limits the number of local customers you'll have. So it's tempting for a shop to repair a wide variety of devices and brands, but that gets you into trouble. As they say, take on the world and the world always wins. When you specialize, you become an expert at your specialization. You become more efficient. You become faster. You do higher quality work. But on the flip side, when you encounter a device you've never seen in your life, that repair might take 2 hours. The next time, maybe an hour. Then the next time, 30 minutes. And the next time, 10 minutes. Thanks to your new specialized ability, you can do 40 of that repair in a day with your eyes closed. Not only that, but you're doing a better job and you're not making mistakes. But as a repair shop, you'll never have 40 of the same repair in the same day. Even if you limit the scope of what you'll repair, you'll have tons of varied repairs, plus all the related individual customers wasting your time. You'll often be working on items for the first time ever. In other words, the 2-hour repair, the worst experience you'll ever have with that device because it's the first one you've done. You're at the risk of breaking things, and because you've made promises to the customer, breaking things is just not an option. Plus, because you don't have dozens or hundreds of similar devices sitting around, you don't have spare parts to draw from. Troubleshooting requires known good parts to test with, but if you don't have those, you can't even begin a process of elimination to let you know what parts you need for a repair. So you guess. Then you buy parts blind and pay retail for them, and let's face it, you don't actually even know if the parts you buy are good or tested because parts sellers often don't test them. So you might get a bad part that's supposed to be good and assume some other part is bad instead because the one you bought is supposed to be working, right? What a mess. And to make matters worse, it takes time for parts to arrive, so you've essentially doubled down on your diagnosis, and if you're wrong, you're days behind. And meanwhile, the clock is ticking and you've got a guilt-tripping customer hanging over you. Something never talked about is that when you've repaired hundreds or thousands of the same item, you gain an intuitive sense. Instead of a generic knowledge base, you have an extensive knowledge of that particular device and its quirks, such that you can almost innately guess the issue. You know how that specific device tends to act, how it tends to fail, even when it's contrary to popular belief. This is not some kind of spiritual believe in yourself sort of thing. It's simply that your brain has so much experience with this device that your subconscious connects the dots and gives you a very reliable answer. Whereas if this is your first time repairing a device, you don't have the benefit of that. You have nothing but a generic flowchart of how things should go. But reality is that each and every device has its own quirky personality that defies the norm and needs to be learned. This intuitive sense you build reaps massive benefits because it steers you in the right direction again and again and again and saves you time, money, and aggravation. Again, it's the benefit of specialization, and it's the difference between success and failure, the difference between profitability and just scraping by. A couple simple examples. Back in the day, I bought hundreds of 17-inch MacBook Pros for almost nothing because I was told they were dead. Well, guess what? The recyclers who sold them to me didn't know that 17-inch Pros needed an 85-watt power supply to power on, and they were testing with 60-watt. I knew this, and I bought all the 17-inch I could find for years from dozens of sources. Another example, when you swap the battery on a white unibody MacBook, often the battery tugs at the top case cable, keeping the power button from working, leading the tech to assume it's dead. Again, I've acquired literally 1,000 of these super cheap because they were misdiagnosed. These are just tiny examples that don't even get into repair, yet I can count the benefit of them in the tens of thousands of dollars. Now imagine having dozens of these little tricks up your sleeve. Another way to think of it, if you don't have this knowledge and this is your first encounter with these devices, then you are the fool making a misdiagnosis and throwing money away. When you have a repair shop and cater to local customers, you need to have a retail location. Sure, you can do mail order or visit people at their homes to avoid that, but most of the time, a repair operation needs a retail location. And I can't even conceive of the expense of that. I've never had one. You're starting every month in the hole, paying $1,000, $2,000, $6,000, or whatever the cost is, plus internet, utilities, insurance, maintenance, plus you have to build it out and pay to make it look nice and presentable, and you can't even write off the miles driving there because the IRS doesn't let you write off driving to work. It's a massive unnecessary expense that puts you in the hole at the beginning of every month. As a refurbisher, you don't need to pay for a place. You can work where you already are, in your parents' basement or your room or your dorm. You don't need a public-facing entity at all. You're not allowing the general public into your space, so it doesn't have to look nice. Your customers don't need to examine your repair methods and decide if it suits them, because all that matters is the finished product that you're selling. This is what freedom looks like. Think about it. Not renting a retail space allows businesses to exist that otherwise might not even be viable. And if you are eventually so successful that you need a space, you can rent the back of a warehouse in a cheap commercial district and pay a tiny fraction of what a retail shop would cost. Refurbishing opens up the possibility of the blue ocean strategy. I'll explain. When you have 5 people fishing in a small pond, there are only so many fish, and you're competing for those fish. A repair shop, which is inherently a local business, is competing for fish in the proximity of the shop, and the other shops in the area are your competitors. But as a refurbisher, you're not confined to the local at all, because you can sell to anyone. So you are fishing in the ocean, where there's an unlimited number of fish. So not only are you not competing for customers, but you're not in competition with other businesses around you. In fact, the other businesses can be your friends. You can even help one another. Over the years, I've worked with hundreds of other small refurbishers, trading ideas, bartering back and forth for products and parts, and helping each other out in every way conceivable. We give away all our secrets, and it just makes us better and in no way introduces competition, because when you fish in the ocean, there's an unlimited number of fish. You can buy from anywhere in the world, and you can sell anywhere too. On marketplaces, local if you want. You can export, do wholesale, sell on your website, whatever. Dream it up and you can do it. As a refurbisher, again, you're selling the item that you own. Therefore, the money you make is determined by how much the item is worth and how much you're able to sell it for, minus your costs. If a computer sells for $300, then $300 is the max you're going to make on that item. Think of $300 as the ceiling in this case. Let's say you buy the computer for $20, then various other related costs. So $300 minus $65 cost of goods sold is $235 profit. A repair shop is obviously different in this respect. It literally doesn't matter what the item is or what the value of the item is. It can have zero market value. But if the customer is willing to pay $300 for a repair, then bingo, there's a transaction in play. But I would argue that in the refurbishing model, you have vastly more control of costs. You use parts from non-working devices you have purchased, which costs next to nothing. As an Apple refurbisher, I never once bought a new Apple part, not once in 17 years, because I get the parts I need out of the devices I buy. There's a concept called the $10,000 computer. If you buy each and every part of a computer individually, then that's a $10,000 computer because you're paying retail for all the parts. And with a repair shop not having parts and therefore having to buy new parts, you're buying pieces of the $10,000 computer every time you do. Sure, yes, you increase the fee in order to pass on the parts costs to the customer, but at some point the customer doesn't even give you the business because it's just too expensive. Plus, think about what kinds of devices repair shops work on. Mostly newer material, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but parts for newer devices are far more expensive. Not only that, but they're less available as well. As a repair shop, you're often at the mercy of the manufacturers to get those parts. That's why right to repair matters for repair shops and not so much for refurbishers. A repair shop may need to sign up for manufacturer programs in order to get the parts they need, or they may need to acquire manufacturer certifications to become authorized, or even sign non-disclosure agreements, and when they do eventually succeed in buying the parts, they'll probably pay an amount that severely limits how much money they can even make, or how much business they'll get. Often a repair shop is barely its own independent entity anymore by the time it's succeeded in getting authorization from manufacturers. At that point, it's just a marionette controlled by the manufacturers they've agreed to serve. But as a refurbisher, chances are you'll be dealing in somewhat older products because that's what's available from recyclers, schools, and corporations. Not only are parts more plentiful when devices have been around for years, but again, you're buying dozens or hundreds or thousands of the same devices to refurbish, so you have the parts, and you pay very little for them because they come from low-cost broken devices you've purchased in bulk. This contributes massively to having a lower cost of goods sold, and it can let you make a lot more money. True, older devices sell for less, but that is way offset by having lower costs and also being able to process far more devices because you're an expert. By the way, I keep stressing the importance of parts, but in refurbishing, half to two-thirds of the devices you acquire are already fully working. No repairs needed. Some days you might buy and flip 100 working devices before lunch. As a refurbisher, you pick the suppliers that give you the best deals, not ones you're required to deal with. You pick the customers who pay you the most and who waste the least amount of your time. To all the rest, all the bad ones, you just say, gosh, I seem to be out of inventory. I'm so sorry. You find repeat customers who buy dozens or hundreds of devices at once, and these kinds of wholesale customers shield you from engaging with end users, which saves you time and lets you focus on refurbishing and churning out yet more product. Your time is the biggest bottleneck and your most valuable resource, and in refurbishing, your time is your own to schedule as you see fit. You don't have a store, so you don't need an open sign, and you don't need to have regular business hours. You don't have to arbitrarily stay somewhere until 6 p.m. because Google says you're open until then. When you're a refurbisher, Google doesn't even know you exist. One great thing about refurbishing is it can truly be low profile, whereas repair shops can only thrive by putting themselves out there, by advertising and making themselves known. And that creates problems. You have to worry about how you're rated on websites. You have to worry about that one guy with a bad experience who keeps popping up. Plus, security can be a problem. Your door is unlocked and you're inviting random strangers in to waste your time. In refurbishing, the only obligation to your customers is that the devices you sell them are what you say they are. You can say they're in crappy physical condition, you can say they're not working, you can say they contain used parts or non-OEM parts, you can say there's a year warranty or no warranty. This all adds flexibility because it lets you get rid of product. With a repair shop, even if the obligation is fully documented, there's a lingering, unstated, assumed obligation. The follow-up phone calls. Every customer you sell to is a customer who feels that you owe them tech support, perhaps even a free fix if the device breaks again. Every repair shop owner will tell you this is a constant struggle, and arguing with people gets very tiring. With refurbishing, you sell the product and it's over and done. If you have to do a return, you say sorry, send them a prepaid label, and wash your hands of it. Look, there are downsides to being a refurbisher as well, I won't lie. You have to know where to get the inventory, you have to keep it somewhere, you have to organize it, you have to build relationships. You own what you repair, so you've got to have the money to buy it. Plus you have to deal with things like device locks. But this is not the video about the obstacles. To dig deeper into the obstacles and learn a lot more about how refurbishing works, watch my video on buying from electronics recyclers. So look, I'm not saying there's no value to a repair shop. Obviously there is. They do humanity a great service, and I applaud any small business that makes it work. But in today's reality, in the world of repair, it's getting a lot harder, and more than ever, it's worth considering alternate strategies and other business models. The thing I love about refurbishing is that it's so completely flexible. A person can even refurbish as a hobby, buy a single broken item off eBay, repair it at their leisure, and then sell it off. It can be a side income, or you can have 10 million in gross sales a year. The essence of refurbishing is that you have total control, total freedom, and you call the shots. Your costs are low because you're not starting every month in the hole. You're acquiring property, making it usable again, and then releasing it into the world. That's a good thing. And you are the expert, so you're efficient and fast, and you're maximizing your profit and your time at every turn. And by the way, it's satisfying to be competent, to be an expert, to be the best there is at something, the best at repairing some device. And hey, you're the boss, you have full control, so as a refurbisher, you can even schedule yourself a vacation now and then. Imagine that. Thanks for watching.